Hey, if you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that noti bell because it really helps out. When Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace premiered in '99, it wasn't just the return of a beloved saga, it was the genesis of a bold new chapter that dared to look back, expand the mythology, and tell the origin of a galaxy in decline. And yet, for reasons both fair and grossly exaggerated, it was immediately and almost cast into the pit of cinematic scorn by a large portion of the media, casual audiences, and self-professed fans alike. But time has a funny way of reshaping perspective, and for those of us who not only grew up with the Phantom Menace, but who truly saw it for what it was, not just what it wasn't, it has always stood tall as an underappreciated pillar in the Star Wars saga. Beneath the memes, behind the surface level critiques, and buried under the noise of decades-old backlash lies a film brimming with vision, world building, mythic depth, and genuine love for the Star Wars universe. The backlash that surrounded the Phantom Menace was always louder than it was justified. Much of the ire was driven not by what the film failed to do, but by what fans, steeped in the nostalgia of the original trilogy, expected it should do. They wanted another New Hope. What they got instead was something braver, a political, rather philosophical, and richly layered tale that didn't seek to mirror the past, but to explain it, to lay the groundwork for the fall of the Jedi, the rise of the Sith, and the tragic downfall of Anakin Skywalker. In many ways, the Phantom Menace isn't just a prologue, it's a slow, burning tragedy hiding under the colourful sheen of pod races, trade disputes, and Gungan slapstick. And that contradiction between light and dark, between childhood wonder and looming catastrophe, is what makes this film so thematically poignant and daring. There's a deep irony in how the Phantom Menace was criticised for its politics, its pacing, and its tone, because those very elements are what makes it so uniquely Star Wars. George Lucas, ever the auteur, didn't craft this film to simply placate fans with laser swords and recycled beats. He constructed an entire ecosystem, new worlds, new ideologies, new tensions that felt like they had always existed in this galaxy far, far away. Naboo's idyllic serenity juxtaposed against the cold mechanics of the Trade Federation, the stoic hubris of the Jedi Order, and the quiet manipulations of Darth Sidious all serve as the subtle but undeniable warning signs of an era inching towards collapse. This isn't just a children's movie, it's a cautionary tale wearing the mask of adventure. And let's not pretend it doesn't deliver on spectacle. The Duel of the Fates fight alone is a masterclass in visual storytelling and emotional subtext. It's not just an incredible fight, it's symbolic. A battle for Anakin's future, waged between a stoic master, a wild-card Padawan, and a Sith assassin fueled by rage and desire. John Williams' thunderous score elevates the scene into something operatic, proving that the Phantom Menace, for all of its critics, still knows how to strike at the heart of myth and meaning. For those of us who grew up with the prequels, or those who later revisited them with open minds and full hearts, The Phantom Menace is more than just an origin story. It's a testament to the vision of a creator who refused to be safe, who dared to build upon rather than recycle, and who painted the first strokes of a tragic masterpiece across a canvas already filled with expectation. It's a film rich in ambition, world building, lore, and heart, and though it may have stumbled in the eyes of many upon release, it never truly fell. In truth, The Phantom Menace was never the disappointment it was made out to be by die-hard fans of the original trilogy. It was simply a film ahead of its time, misunderstood by those who couldn't yet see the scope of what Lucas was trying to weave, and now, with the benefit of hindsight, it stands as a cornerstone of the saga, a film that dared to not start with fireworks, but with a spark that would ignite the fall of a republic, the tragedy of a hero, and the rise of an empire. From the very moment The Phantom Menace opens with its quiet yet tense depiction of a trade dispute in the outer reaches of the galaxy, it becomes abundantly clear this is not just a return to the familiar, but an ambitious leap into uncharted thematic and visual territory. George Lucas wasn't interested in simply rehashing the aesthetics and vibes of the original trilogy, unlike J.J. Abrams tried to do with his abhorrent sequel trilogy. He envisioned a fully realized galaxy in a state of false peace, decadence, and political complacency. The Galactic Republic isn't the noble institution many assumed it would be. It's bloated, tangled in bureaucracy, and silently rotting from within. Through this lens, The Phantom Menace introduces audiences to a world far more complex than the black and white struggle of rebels versus empire. Here, the real enemy is apathy, the slow decay of ideals, and the illusion of control. That isn't just storytelling, that's Lucas crafting a mythos so much richer and more tragic in hindsight, one that gives the fall of Anakin and the Jedi Order the gravity and inevitability it deserves. What makes the world building in The Phantom Menace so astonishing is its commitment to breadth and depth. We're not just seeing new planets, we're witnessing entire new cultures unfold before our eyes. Naboo is presented as a lush paradise ruled by an eclectic monarchy steeped in elegance and tradition. Its visual design, with its Renaissance-inspired architecture and serene natural beauty, contrasts sharply with the industrialized dread of the Trade Federation's droid control ships, highlighting the very theme at the heart of the prequels: the clash between nature and machine, democracy and manipulation. Then there's Coruscant, the glittering seat of the Republic, where the Jedi Temple watches over a skyline teeming with both opportunity and danger. Each location in The Phantom Menace is dripping with intention, symbolism, and cultural detail, making the galaxy feel genuinely alive and lived in, not just a backdrop for space battles. And through all of this, Lucas doesn't just introduce a new era, he injects it with a sense of grandeur and narrative purpose. The pod racing scene on Tatooine isn't just a thrilling visual spectacle, though it absolutely is. It's also a subtle commentary on equality, freedom, and destiny. Anakin's life as a slave, contrasted against the elite spectacle of the pod race, underlines the socio-economic divides in the galaxy that the Republic, willingly or unwillingly, chooses to ignore. Even the existence of midichlorians, so often mocked, is used as a storytelling device to tether Anakin's power to something ancient and mysterious, a science woven into myth. Everything in The Phantom Menace has a place in the broader tapestry of Star Wars lore. It's not random, it's not shallow, it's meticulously crafted. The world building doesn't just support the story, it is the story. And that's something many critics and fans completely missed all the way back in 1999. Back in the early 2000s, it became something of a cultural pastime to ridicule The Phantom Menace for opening the saga not with laser blasts or lightsaber duels, but with a blockade, a trade dispute, and a bureaucratic stalemate in the Galactic Senate. For many who were weaned on the pulpy war drama of the original trilogy, this sudden shift into galactic economics and diplomacy felt jarring and even absurd. Fans and critics alike turned the film's political framing into a punchline, mocking the very idea that something as dry-sounding as trade tariffs could ignite a Star Wars story. Why is Star Wars so suddenly about tax legislation? Was the common refrain, as if the inclusion of complex politics somehow betrayed the space opera's spirit. But what these detractors failed to see was that The Phantom Menace wasn't boring, it was prescient. George Lucas wasn't writing nonsense, he was weaving a political parable about how fragile institutions crack, not under the weight of war, but through the slow erosion of accountability and how those in power can exploit systems meant to serve peace. Flash forward 20 or so years, and the geopolitical landscape had taken a strange and almost comically ironic turn. Suddenly, trade wars weren't the stuff of fictional senates and droid armies, they were a daily reality, thanks in no small part to the blustering antics of now President Donald Trump. In a move that baffled economists and even his own party, Trump, as of 2025, decided to slap tariffs on nearly every major trading partner the US had: China, Canada, the European Union, Mexico, Australia, and many, many more, all under the guise of protecting American interests. The result? Economic uncertainty, retaliatory tariffs, collapsing agricultural markets, and an international trade environment that looked eerily like the opening crawl of The Phantom Menace. What Lucas had written as a cautionary tale of manipulation through economics suddenly felt all too real, and these so-called boring opening scenes aged from eye-rolling exposition to uncomfortably accurate commentary on modern statecraft. The genius of The Phantom Menace lies in its understanding that wars don't erupt from thin air. They are born in backroom deals, in legislative loopholes, and in the greedy ambition of those who benefit from stagnation. The Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo isn't just a petty act of aggression, it's a calculated maneuver meant to expose the inefficiency of the Republic's political machinery. It's a slow, deliberate ploy to sow distrust and inefficiency. One that, under the shadowy influence of Darth Sidious, allows corruption to spread like a virus, And when you compare that fictional Senate, filled with self-interested delegates, bureaucratic deadlock, and indecisive leadership, with real-world political systems that have fallen into similar dysfunction, it becomes glaringly obvious that Lucas was trying to make a statement. The film's political intrigue wasn't filler, it was the fuse. It was the beginning of the end, the rot at the heart of the Golden Age. So yes, the Phantom Menace had trade disputes. Yes, it focused on economic sanctions and political posturing, but rather than being a flaw, this emphasis was foundational to understanding how empires rise in the shadows of democracies. It's tragically funny that these same people who once scoffed at Lucas's galactic tariffs lived to see the absurdity of a real-world government trying to solve complex global issues with scattershot taxes and chest-thumping rhetoric. In retrospect, the Senate scenes in The Phantom Menace didn't bore, they warned. They showed us, the viewer, that peace is fragile, that democracy is vulnerable, and that sometimes the loudest clowns in the room are the ones dragging the whole system down. For all the snide jokes about intergalactic tax codes, it turns out George Lucas understood something that few others did, and that is, politics matter, even in a galaxy far, far away. One of the most endlessly debated aspects of The Phantom Menace has always been its acting, particularly its more eccentric, stylized, or childlike performances, which many were quick to label as wooden, overacted, or jarringly out of place. But to dismiss the film's acting choices as accidental missteps is to misunderstand the eternal register George Lucas was aiming for. This wasn't grounded cinema verite. This was high myth told through the lens of operatic science fantasy, a film intentionally echoing the cadence of serialized adventure films, silent era melodrama, and classical mythology. The dialogue was often deliberate and declamatory because these characters weren't meant to feel like average people at the mall, they were representatives of larger forces in the galaxy on the cusp of collapse. The stylized way characters speak and behave, especially like Jedi Qui-Gon Jinn or even Chancellor Valorum, is a reflection of the film's roots in archetypal storytelling. It's not realism, it's intentional, mythic artifice. Take, for example, Jake Lloyd's performance as young Anakin Skywalker. It's become something of a reflective tradition for internet culture to mock the line delivery to reduce his portrayal to nothing more than a yippee. But in The Phantom Menace, Anakin's portrayal as an overly optimistic, kind-hearted, even naive boy wasn't just a random casting fluke, it was a strategic foundation. This child, who we now one day will become Darth Vader, is purposefully innocent, cheerful, and brimming with unfiltered energy and belief. His lines are not meant to evoke Oscar-winning pathos, but to establish an unguarded purity that the dark side will eventually consume. The tonal dissonance of Anakin in this movie is the point, because when you reflect on his tragic fall in Revenge of the Sith, that contrast becomes the very heart of the tragedy. His cheerful disposition in Episode 1 is not a failure, it is a haunting setup. And then there's Jar Jar Binks, one of the most divisive characters in cinema history, whose mere name can ignite debates more heated than the twin sons of Tatooine. While some viewers saw him as an insufferable slapstick nuance, others understood his role as more than just comic relief. Jar Jar is part of a long-standing Star Wars tradition of inserting whimsy and levity into a larger tale of conflict and doom. Think of Ewoks, or even R2-D2's beeping sass. Lucas always made room for the absurd. Jar Jar's physicality, his exaggerated dialect, and his bumbling missteps are all designed to evoke a very specific type of comedic performance, not unlike those found in silent film clowns or vaudevillain acts. It's deliberately child-oriented, yes, but it also functions as an undercurrent of chaotic luck, a kind of cosmic fool whose presence inexplicably shapes and shifts galactic events. And perhaps most damningly, or brilliantly depending on your perspective, Jar Jar's arc also turns from harmless clown to unwitting political pawn, adding another layer to Lucas's twisted vision of how fragile republics can fall. Beyond the much lampooned Anakin and Jar Jar, there's a theatrical consistency to the rest of the cast that deserves genuine praise. Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn radiates stoic defiance and quiet compassion, offering a performance that feels like it could have been carved from marble. A younger Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, though understated in this installment, gives us just enough sarcasm and reverence to see the complex man that he will become. Even the politicians like Ian McDermott's silky, manipulative Senator Palpatine delivered their lines with a calm veneer of respectability, hiding volcanic malice underneath. These performances might seem stilted on the surface to audiences used to naturalistic dialogue and rapid-fire wit, but within the context of a galaxy built on formality, tradition, and looming war, they make perfect mythic sense. The Phantom Menace didn't ever aim to capture the pulse of modern speech, it aimed to echo the rhythms of legends, and in that regard, the acting is not just appropriate, it's almost Shakespearean in scope and ambition. The lightsaber duel at the climax of the Phantom Menace between Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, and the menacing Sith apprentice Darth Maul is not merely an action set piece or a showcase of dazzling choreography. It is the emotional and thematic linchpin of the film, and arguably of the entire Skywalker saga. In its purest form, this battle is a clash of ideologies, of futures, of destinies yet unwritten. It is a storm of kinetic energy, underscored by heartbreak, legacy, and the tragic weight of choice, and all of it is elevated beyond mere spectacle by the operatic brilliance of John Williams' now legendary composition, Duel of the Fates. A title that doesn't just name a musical track, but defines the moment as a turning point that will echo throughout every subsequent tragedy in Anakin Skywalker's life. At first glance, the battle is rather simple, two Jedi confronting a Sith warrior. But beneath the blade strikes and acrobatics, it's a symbolic war over the soul of the galaxy, and the soul of a young boy not yet aware of what looms in his future. Qui-Gon Jinn stands as the last of the old guard who truly understood the deeper currents of the Force. He sees Anakin not merely as a chosen one to be weaponized, but as a boy who must be nurtured, guided, and loved in the right way. His intention to train Anakin comes from not blind prophecy, but from empathy and trusting in the living, breathing entity that is the Force. Darth Maul, on the other hand, is a phantom of death, silent, ferocious, and brimming with hate, a mere instrument of the Sith's re-emergence. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, the dutiful apprentice, is caught in between, loyal to the Council, obedient to his master, but not yet ready to bear the enormous weight that fate will soon thrust upon him. The fight itself is unlike anything Star Wars had previously shown, whether it be 20 years ago or even recently. The raw physicality, the staccato tension, the eerie quiet of the laser barriers, it all builds to a crescendo of tragedy. When Qui-Gon is struck down by Maul, it isn't just a master failing in battle, it is the death of one of the Jedi who could have potentially steered Anakin away from the abyss of the dark side. This is the true Duel of the Fates. The fate in question isn't just that of Obi-Wan or Maul, it is Anakin's, it is the galaxy's. Had Qui-Gon lived, Anakin may have grown under the tutelage of a Jedi who truly understood him. Instead, he is handed to Obi-Wan, who trains him not out of intuitive belief, but out of duty, out of a promise made on the dying breath of a mentor. And while Obi-Wan is a good man and a great Jedi, he is never the father figure Anakin so desperately needed. He is a brother, not a guide. And then there is the music. John Williams' Duel of the Fates. It is not just simply an orchestral accompaniment, it is prophecy made sound. The choral Sanskrit, the pounding rhythms, the chanted urgency, it all feels like the Force itself is screaming in anguish, warning of the balance that is tipping towards the dark side. This track doesn't merely enhance the battle, it narrates it, lifting it into the realm of myth. It sings of a war beyond the physical, a struggle over a boy's destiny, one that, unknown to the combatants, will determine the fall of the Republic, the rise of a galactic empire, and the ultimate redemption of Darth Vader. The fates in question are plural because more than one life, more than one path is being decided. Every cut, every parry, every scream of the choir signifies that this just isn't the end of one story, it's the seed of them all. The galaxy didn't just change when Palpatine took office, it changed the moment Qui-Gon fell. It changed when the Duel of the Fates was lost. Looking back with the benefit of time, it becomes even more apparent that the Phantom Menace was never the shallow, miscalculated misfire its critics once claimed it to be. Instead, it was a film burdened by the impossible weight of anticipation dissected by audiences and pundits who sought something that was never promised, a retread of the original trilogy and its grit, humour, as well as its rebel charm. What they were given instead was something far more subversive and ambitious, the meticulous first brick in a mythological epic that dared to paint in tones of political disillusionment, spiritual decay, and cosmic irony. George Lucas didn't give us what we thought we wanted, he gave us what the saga needed to evolve, and The Phantom Menace, in all of its visual grandeur and thematic boldness, laid that foundation with quiet confidence and operatic intensity. What many failed to grasp in '99, and some fail to do even now, is that this was never a story about immediate gratification. This was a myth building in reverse, tragedy unfolding in slow motion, with galactic downfall hiding beneath the gleam of chrome starships and the joy of pod racing. It wasn't surface level adventure, it was ancient theatre retold through the lens of a digital age, a tale where even the most hopeful of beginnings were laced with the scent of doom. The Phantom Menace dares to lull the audience into a sense of childlike wonder through vibrant alien worlds, slapstick comedy, and the smiling face of a young naive slave boy, only to subvert that comfort by letting you see the quiet ghosts haunting every frame. It was never just about how Anakin's journey began, it was about how the galaxy was already lost, long before the Death Star ever blinked into existence. And perhaps that is what makes the film resonate more profoundly now than it ever could have in the turn of the millennium. In a time where modern politics mirror the bureaucratic failings, and manipulated conflicts seen in the Galactic Senate, and when destinies are decided by more than disinformation than honor, The Phantom Menace feels eerily prophetic. The trade disputes, the false diplomacy, the Sith's sinister re-entry through institutional decay, it all plays like a haunting allegory of modern decline. So now, with decades of hindsight, it is clear to me, and I'm sure many others watching this, that The Phantom Menace was never the failure it was accused of being. It was a misunderstood overture, a thematic key that unlocks the entire tragedy of Anakin Skywalker and the fall of the Jedi. Its choices, be they tonal, structural, or narrative, were not random errors, but deliberate moves in a masterful symphony of storytelling. The film that was mocked for its trade negotiations and Gungan slapstick now stands as the quiet architect of Star Wars' deepest layers. And for those who dared to see past the surface, for those who watched not just with eyes, but with eventual understanding, The Phantom Menace reveals itself as the saga's most essential chapter, not because it offers the best battles or the flashiest lines, but because it is where the fate of everything truly began.
Oh, I track all my love.